Hey everybody, and welcome back. It's Benita Hudson here with your May forecast. And as usual, I am using the Publishing Goblins Oracle Dice second edition, and very excited because I just pledged to participate on the Backerkit for his third and last edition. So it'll mean another whole set of 22 die and another cloth to add to what I'm already doing. So when I do the forecast, I might bring them all together, or I might do two. One with this, what's he's calling the seasons die, and then one with the new die, which would give us a really neat basis for comparison as to the kind of readings that we're getting. So I'm super excited about that, and I'll put a link to the Backerkit so that if you want to get your own set, you'll be able to. Seven, who puts out the Publishing Goblin materials, is quite a prolific creative individual, and they involve other artists, and they're really quite something. And I had the pleasure of going on to a live video where they were launching this new pledge program, and you could get a reading from Seven. So I got the pleasure of having that, and it was, of course, spot on. Great fun. So I'm excited to do May's reading with you today, and I'll be switching to my other camera so that you'll be able to see me actually cast the die. So the second edition came with this beautiful box, and you can see all the die. It's quite exquisite. So we'll get all the die ready. And because I got in early on the last Backerkit, I also got the Publishing Goblins Oracle Dice cards. So I normally do pick one card to go with this particular spread. So let's see what's coming up for me. Shuffling, and I'm pulling a card, and the card we have, oh, if I can read it here, the Baron of Autumn. So we will lay that right here so you can see that one, and we'll see how that shows up. And I do use the book for reference. The next set is actually going to have a deck of cheat sheets, cards with a quick glance as to what the die means. So that's going to be really cool too. There's just so much going on with this that I just love. It's such beautiful, intricate readings. All right, so let's see what we're getting here for May. And if they go off the mat, we don't. And one left on the floor, one's off the mat. And we don't have any really showing up right in the core this time. But the chaos die has shown up. That's right here. And I always like to check that one because sometimes it changes. That and the fate die sometimes change the way things sit on the mat. So with the chaos die, we are looking at, I love the names for these. This one is called Dumpster Fire. So it says when this happens, you know something apocalyptic is happening. Well, yeah, you only have to look at the state of our world right now to go, yep, that fits. So it's basically saying the die nearest this die shouldn't be touched or interacted with. It's burning. If you want to go near it, interact with it, try to change it, you'll get burnt. You were warned. And it is right next to this die. So we're going to see how that plays out as we go forward. Now, let's look for the fate die, because that sometimes gets us to move die around on the mat. So the fate die is showing up right here in the present. And the ace is that perfect thing you need. It's a silver bullet. It's a perfect thing you need at just the right moment. It's taking risk and finding just the tool you need at hand to get by. So when it comes up in a reading, it's telling you that exactly what you need will be there in your hand when you need it. So take the risk, take the leap. So that's really comforting to know that this dice is basically saying at the present time, we're getting what we need. And I've talked about this before, that this whole situation politically is pulling us out of our complacency. We're having to think about what's really important to us. What are we willing to do about the things that are meaningful to us? We can't just go, oh, well, somebody else will take care of it, or, oh, it's not my problem. It's right here, and we're having to deal with it. So there we go. All right. So we didn't have to move any die around. So we're just going to systematically go through and see what's what. We have the actions die showing up. Okay. It is pivotal. It's right between future and fated. And that particular symbol is called judgment. So you can see it's like little scales. And it says this face asks you to do, to basically determine whether things are ultimately moral or immoral or ethical or not. So whether you should, take that new job or whatever that situation is it the right thing for you to do? And it's saying, don't let the choice be made for you. Determine what is right for yourself. So it's saying, in other words, this is pivoting on future and fated, saying, don't just go, well, the world is happening to me. If you want your fate to be affected in a way that works for you, you need to make a choice. Are you doing what is ethical? Are you listening to what your soul is saying is your path? Right? We can often go into victim mode and go, oh, this is happening to me. But remember, everything is happening for us. It doesn't always feel that way, but it's always taking us to what is most important in terms of our personal growth. Now, the alchemist die, interestingly enough, is right here, and it is straddling fated and the past. And the particular face that we are looking at is Mercury. So it is a combination of the solid and the fluid states of matter. So it represents metamorphosis, a state of constant change. So what's interesting about that, there's an expression, and I love it so much that my husband actually printed it out and put it on the wall here in my office. And it's really appropriate here. And it's by G. Michael Hoff. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. And weak men create hard times. There's a cycle. So right now we're dealing with weak men creating hard times. But remember, hard times create strong men. And eventually those strong men create good times. We're going through a cycle. So be aware that this has happened before, obviously, hence of 1940s. It's happening again, and it'll continue to happen because it's the way human nature is. We're always going to have those people who just want what they want for themselves and don't care about other people. And it motivates the rest of us to care and to take, actions of bravery, to take acts of courage that we might not normally do because we're now being motivated to. So it's saying, yes, these things are happening. It's our fate. But it's a cycle. So just recognize that and recognize there is a process here afoot. It's, these things happen for a reason. I just want to bear in mind the Baron of Autumn is the card I want to keep an eye out for as I go through the book as well. And I will let you know when I come to that. So the Alleyman die. Let's see if it's showing up on the mat, or it might be no, it's not the one that's on the floor. Okay, so it is showing up under future. And that's this one right here. It's that I, which is about truth. So basically when it's showing up, it's saying, truth is shared in a variety of ways. In a reading, the truth asks you to see something just for what it is. Stop placing unnecessary weight on things. Some things are more or less that we burden them with. So in other words, don't add pain to your pain. Everything that's happening is necessary to our journey. And I do believe our soul said, this is going to be a really interesting time to be on Earth. I don't want to miss out on this. I don't want to miss out on this incredible growth experience. So for the future, it's saying this is about, seeing things as they are rather than embellishing them and adding our own fears and filters to it. It was a fascinating thing being at the Nanaimo infusion. I'm just going to switch my camera here for a second, take you guys back to me. When Todd Maffin put it out there to the folks in the States, we're sorry about what's happening in your country. It's affecting you. It's affecting us. It'd be great if you wanted to come up and support us, come to Nanaimo and get a warm welcome and support our economy. And hundreds of Americans came. Tillman and I were down there, and we got to meet a lot of wonderful people. And it was really nice to be able to say, our problem is with your leader, not with you. And you are welcome here. And we had a lot of nice hugs, a lot of beautiful, heartfelt conversations. We sort of organically adopted an American. We got to spend some time with some folks, and it's the sort of thing that just says, the weak men in charge can do everything they want, but it's not going to break the bonds people form with each other at the grassroots level. So, that's the truth. There's shenanigans going on at the higher level, and it's going to filter down, and it's doing a lot of harm. Some of the things that are happening in the States are absolutely heartbreaking, and we're seeing the ripple effect of how it's affecting Canada as well. But love will prevail. Kindness will prevail. We will continue to reach out to people and say, we'll get through this together. It's just going to be a tough situation. And it's been wonderful to have Americans be supportive and say, we want to support Canada through this. And we had so many people say, we're so sorry about what our leader is doing. In fact, there was one group that had these big buttons, and they were doing an apology tour, which was really delightful. So thank you all for coming. Thank you, Todd, for putting this together. Tillman and I love to watch your videos. You and Jocelyn are just wonderful people and very inspiring. And if you haven't been watching Todd's videos, he just has such a great take on politics, on Canadian history. He and Jocelyn are hilarious, very entertaining, very educational, very inspirational. So I highly recommend them. And I'll put a link to their YouTube on my feed here as well. All right, back to the Oracle cards and dice. All right, so the attentions die, where are we finding that one? That is also showing up in the future. So it's this little dude in a spotlight, and it's called Spotlight. Spotlight is what so many want, to be seen by everyone. It's also the horror of the very thing of being known. It's to be the center of attention, but also to know that people you've never met who don't know you now know of you, that you live in their heads as some impossible and poor facsimile of self. So in a reading, it announces that this is the view of things, that many people, often who don't know you, now look on you, that you're in their conversations, that they think about you in ways that are wrong or untrue to who you are because they've seen just a piece of you. So in other words, it's saying, try not to attach too much to how you're seen. For example, it's causing a lot of ire as well as fear for Canadians when we hear of, the president of another country threatening to sublimate our country. And I think we really have to bear in mind that those conversations ensue, and maybe there's a minority of people who are supporting that argument. We can't let that get the better of us. We can't attach to all of that. No matter what is happening around us in the world, we are responsible for how we respond to it. It's one of the reasons I love Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. He was thrown into a Nazi concentration camp, his life's work destroyed, and he made it his work to study why some people survived the camps and why some didn't, and what was happening with them, and basically concluded that many atrocities can be committed upon you, but nobody can decide how you respond to that. That's entirely up to you. It's what's within you that can become stronger and more powerful no matter what's going on in the world or in our particular circumstance. So that's how I take that for the future. Don't be too attached to what other people are saying. We always have a say over how we respond to things. So we come to the autumn die and to the card, the Baron of Autumn. Now, interestingly enough, the autumn die itself ended up on the floor. So it's not on the mat, but let's see what the influence of the card is. He brings with him the overwhelming and somehow still subtle presence of autumn. He asks you plainly, what have you been working on? He knows your pace is your own. He merely wants to know what progress you are making. He warns you, reminds you that a time will come when you can't do the work anymore, that if you want it done, want it in your hands complete, you must keep going. So in other words, it's saying this month is a time of striving. It's a time of taking action. We can't be complacent. We can't wait for somebody else to address the things going wrong in our world. Everybody has to do their part. I like what Gandhi said, no matter, whatever you do, no matter how insignificant it might seem, it's very important that you do it. There's a ripple effect. Todd's a good example of that. He put a little idea out on TikTok and people responded. And it made a real difference to the folks who came and to those of us who welcomed them. So, a small idea can turn into something magnificent if you apply yourself to it, if you take intention and turn it into action. Okay, we've already looked at the chaos die, so we can go past that. The elements die is showing up right here under fated, but also within. So we're going to see where that one's coming from. So that is the water die. It speaks to moving with the world around you. And basically what it's saying is exactly what I just said. This is internal work. It's within. Doing the inner work and not allowing yourself to be pulled all over the place by the rhetoric that's going on in the world, but find that peace within. Learn how to move with circumstances rather than resisting it, saying, well, this shouldn't be happening to me, or this shouldn't be happening to our country. It is happening. So how do you want to respond to it from doing that inner work that helps you to hold a peaceful space in a world that is kind of topsy-turvy right now? So the fate die we've already looked at. That's saying you're getting what you need at this time. The goblin has gone off the mat. And so we're not going to work with that. It's just off the mat, but I'm not feeling it's applying from what I'm seeing here. So the influences die. We are finding that where? I wonder if that one's also wandered off the mat, because I don't see it. So I might come back to that in a bit if I find it is here and I just didn't notice it. All right. Oh, no, I do see it. It's right here. It's also in the present and it's called puppet. It's a warning. Someone or something is being controlled. And I think that, it's pointing to the presence of manipulation and control. Well, we know this. This is super obvious right now in our world, that we have, I call him Captain Cheeto. We have him, trying to vie for control of our country, our resources. This is really obvious. Interesting that in the present, it is showing up as, you're getting what you need. And this is about seeing things as they are and not over embellishing them. That's the triangle there. So bearing in mind that, we can't let fear control us, that, what he has done is he's brought Canadians together. He's got the whole world looking at trade differently, looking at how they want to make themselves secure. It's changing the face of the nations and how they interact with each other. It's changing trade in our own country. So we can see positives coming out of this as much as it's going to present its challenges on the way in. And that's the thing, is not all the wonderful things that happen in life happen easily or gently. So the kindness die is showing up as gifted. It's way over here in the beyond. And it says gifted in a reading announces itself. It's something you've graciously gifted to another, or it might be in the need for you to do so. So the way I see that one, because it's showing up as beyond, I often say when I'm working with clients, the things that you're going through are your training for the gifts you're meant to offer others. So even if you can't see right now what this is going to lead to, it's going to change society. It's going to change it in some very positive ways. And eventually we're going to see this, and we're going to see how we're meant to contribute and what we've learned that we can then offer going forward. The longings die. The longings die is showing up under fated. You see this face with a mask. It's the desire deeply held by many of us to be away of things, from people, to not be known, to be hidden, to be away from ourselves until we can be alone. It speaks to a necessity of masking your actions, behavior, or identity, hiding your orientation at work to avoid nonsense, for example, hiding your true feelings for another to avoid the awkwardness, hiding your true intentions. So when I see that showing up under fated, we want to pay attention to the other die that it's close to. So when we go back to the alchemical die of Mercury, it's shifting. It speaks to something being fluid and flexible. So the way I look at those two is ourselves might require some finesse. So for example, if for some reason you had to go to the States, you probably aren't going to take a phone that has all your social media on it. In other words, it's about recognizing that things are changing, and you want to be judicious about the information that you're putting out there if it's going to create some harm or some hassle for you. So it's just saying, where this is concerned, for some time, we're going to want to be aware of who we're communicating with and how, just for the sake of being able to move around in the world in a way that works for us. In other words, be sensible about it. Right. The majors die is showing up over here under history, and it's showing a path. So it says the hills and roads on the path face speak to our decisions that lead us on new passages, knowing that each path we do not take will not always return to us as an option. Understand the path not only as begging for the querent to understand their decisions in this moment are important, but also, as explained below, as setting up the path within the reading to understand what's at stake and what options there are to take. So again, this comes back to history. And just like that quote I gave you, it's recognizing history will out. We're going to go through some rough times. We're going to come out the other side of it stronger, more connected, richer as a society because of these tough learning experiences. So it's just saying, bear that in mind. This is the path right now, but it's cyclical. All right, so we get to the Mariner die. The Mariner showing up under future as this anchor. It offers stability, weight, and respite from a long journey in the real world when on the sea. And in the readings, it's much the same. The anchor shows a conscious choice to settle down for a while, often to recoup from a longer journey. So it's basically saying, in the future, there's going to come a point where things come to rest. And it says the issues tend to come with knowing when to drop the anchor or raise it and how much chain to give it. So in other words, it's going to take a little bit of finessing to get clear on when we can come to rest, when we can take a break. We're just going to have to really pay attention to what's going on. And it might be intermittent breaks while we then prepare ourselves for the next action we need to take. Interesting that under inevitable, and I love this, the metamorphosis die shows up. So you can see, it's hard to see with this one, but it's a butterfly. And it's saying a butterfly remembers what it was like to be a caterpillar, but this is a completely different relationship with the world. This is a stage of growth. And it's basically saying that unlike a butterfly whose life is so short, this is not the end of our growth. It's a massive step in it, and it should be loved and enjoyed. So in other words, it's saying all of this is taking us to a period of incredible growth. Let's, the expression amor fati, love your fate. Let's love our fate and not bemoan it. On soul level, we chose to be here. We chose to have these experiences. Another one we're getting for the future is the obstacles die, and it's a little rose. And it is peace. So it says peace is a tricky obstacle. Sometimes we get just what we want. We stem the tide of opposition. We stop the conflict and we get peace. Then what? Sometimes the hardest part is no longer having a clear foe. What do you fight when there's no one left on the other side? Peace is a strange obstacle. You were geared up for battles, for debates, to defend yourselves and others. You're ready to fight. But when the work now is different, when it's building up and sustaining, not just battling, we sometimes lose our way. In other words, as we move into the future, and we might go, well, that rhetoric has stopped. We're okay now. We have to remember that our society is now forever changed. There's no going back to the way things were. We've stepped through a doorway. What do we want to create going forward? What is going to be sustainable for our economy? What is going to be sustainable for our emotional well-being, for our cohesiveness as a society? That is something we're going to have to keep working on. So bear that in mind. Don't allow all the hoopla of the current moment to be your main focus. The relations die shows up under fated as well. And it is called another. Another speaks of someone who means well and tries to do their best for you, but who oversteps their bounds and is controlling or manipulative. So again, the fact that it is showing up with, there's a fluid situation here. Be mindful of how much you show of yourself to the wrong people. Just be aware of anybody that says, I've got your best interests at heart, but look at their actions. If their actions don't demonstrate that, don't show all your cards. Don't offer more than you should. Sometimes with these sorts of situations, people feel weakened, they feel devastated, and they reach for what looks like an easy path out and turns out not to be. So pay attention, use your discretion. If something looks too good to be true, it probably is. Sounds cynical, but it's just saying going forward, we're going to have to, it's just like now when you go to the grocery store and something has the Canadian flag on it, but you still have to read it because it can be an American product that's being sent to Canada and they slap a Canadian flag on it, but it's not a Canadian product. So use your discernment and just be aware that sometimes what looks like an easy situation is not, and we just have to work with that. So the seed card, it's right here under the past. Excitement as we mold something original from ourselves. At its best, it's something we will do and thrive in. So, we know from the last year of readings, there's been a lot of internal work to do. Now the excitement is, what do I take from what I've learned and use it going forward? The expression, those who don't learn from the past are doomed to repeat it. So look at things for you on the personal level, look on the world stage. How can we make sure we don't repeat the mistakes of the past? And one of the things that allowed Hitler to do what he did is a lot of countries turned a blind eye. So we can't turn a blind eye to injustice. We have to be the peace that we want in the world. Okay, these suits die. And this is really interesting. Remember how we know with the chaos die, it's the dumpster fire, and it says, just don't touch this? That's the suits die, and it is discs. So it speaks to the material world of things grounded in reality, of finances and holdings, of merchandise and owned objects. The material world is often more than we realize. Material items can be cars, money, sure, but they can also be bodies. So it's what it's saying in this case, and it says when it's paired with something else, form how positive the experience with materialness is. So in other words, because it's next to the dumpster fire, the message here is don't take the material world so seriously. We are divine beings having one of many human experiences in this life and other lives. So we really want to be aware of, yes, you're here to make a difference. Yes, you're here to awaken. But this isn't the be all and end all. So take it all with a grain of salt and know that you are so much more. And life and reality is so much more than this existence we're seeing. And it's quite fascinating to see how much havoc somebody can create when they're, for all their actions and all their words appear to be completely devoid of a spiritual nature, of seeing that there is more than things to be had. So when somebody goes too much that way, they just want everything, thinking that's going to bring them happiness, but it's all an illusion anyway. So recognize this is all an illusion. Let's do what we're here to do, but let's also recognize that we are so much more. And sometimes that can help us to try to keep our sense of humor and our perspective with everything that's going on. And that's not always possible, but we want to be compassionate, but we don't want to drown in what's going on. Somebody needs to stay in the boat and have life preservers available for the people who are drowning. We need to cultivate our intuition, our compassion, and our connection with our spirituality and with each other. That's going to get us through. Okay, the summer die is in the past, and it's that lovely star. And it says in a reading, it speaks to hopes we carry with us, hopes that we have that are distant still. So the fact that it's showing up next to the seed, it's again saying this is cyclical, don't lose hope. This is a period we're going through. It's not the end of the world. It's a necessary learning and growing process. So remind yourself of that. So right next to that is the winter die, and it is the moon. That's this one right here. And it says the winter is often viewed as the moon's domain, the moon itself being distant, cold, and most often seen as the nights grow longer. The moon is something that seems to change, but is always really the same, just lit in different ways. So the way I look at this, it's again a reminder, this is a cycle. And we're going to come back to the good times created by strong men, because these times are bringing out the strength in humankind. And we will create something better. It will happen. So let's go back to our other camera here. All right, folks. So that was, I would say, pretty appropriate for what's going on now. And I think you get the general sense of there's work to be done, so do the work. But don't get so caught up in it that you just allow it to take you down. Reach out to your friends, reach out to your coaches. I'm happy to be a coach for you, to give you tools to support you through the times we're experiencing now. A lot of the folks over the years who've come to me have also on some level wanted to develop their abilities, and I train people in that. So if you feel moved to be part of the movement of supporting humankind through what I see as an accelerated evolutionary process and awakening, I'm happy to help you build the skills, learn how to work with them ethically. I even will develop your website for you and get you out there. So whatever you're going through right now, we need to be cohesive, we need to be compassionate, and we need to work hard to respond to what is happening and respond in a way that is building something new, not just pushing against something being pushed on us. I think that's really important. We can place a lot of energy and a lot of attention on the rhetoric south of the border, or we can say, okay, so if this is somebody that sees a weakness here that he can exploit, how do we become stronger? How do we go, yeah, whatever, we're building this. This is where we're placing our attention. We are seeing that there are gaps in our country, gaps in how we do trade, gaps in how we connect with each other, how we support each other, how we support our nation. So how do we fill in those gaps? So we can just look at him as a catalyst for realizations that I think we needed to have anyway, because if we didn't need to have them, we wouldn't even be affected by that. We would just be like, yeah, whatever. We are affected because we know there are gaps. So this is our time to work on them. And we can do that in our everyday life. You know, you're in the grocery store and you talk to the person in front of you in the line. You make a connection. Maybe you never see them again, but that person found out that day that there was some friendliness, there was some kindness in the world. And if every day, you know, I'll be driving along, I'll make eye contact with people in the vehicles as I pass, you know, we come to the light, somebody on the street as I'm going past, we make eye contact, we smile, we're building connection. So there's all those ways. You see somebody who appears to be lost. Hi, can I help you find out where you're going? We look for ways to connect and be kind and build the kind of society we all want to live in. We have the catalyst saying, you're not, you know, we'll give you this, we'll make you part of us. We don't want that. But rather than think about what we don't want, and this is a law of, you know, the universe, the more you focus on what you don't want, the more you get what you don't want, because you get whatever you focus on. Instead, let's start the conversation around, what do we want to create? What do we want to build? How do we use this to build something that we can feel good about and we can bring our attention to, rather than get stuck in that rhetoric? Let's stay out of that swamp. Let's create something new in our country. I would just love it if you folks, you know, got on my YouTube channel and, you know, or if you see this posted on Facebook, start a conversation. What do you think we as Canadians can be doing to create the kind of world we all want to live in? I see this around me. I see the kindness. You know, I saw somebody on Reddit was going through a hard time and somebody didn't know them said, hey, you know, I've got a paddle board and a kayak, and, you know, I'll meet with you and you can take one of them out on the water and to get a break. You know, that to me is an amazing thing. What an act of kindness from one Canadian to another. So I'd love to hear, what are the things that you are doing, you want to do, maybe you want other people to participate in, that you want to bring to that conversation. I remember when I was living in the Okanagan, there was a store where one of the, you know, the couple, one of them was in the hospital. They were having a hard time running their store. So there was they called it a cash mob, where a whole bunch of people went that day and just shopped in that store just to help the owners keep going. What a great idea. I'd love to hear your ideas for building community and just creating something really beautiful, because we all have it in us to do it. And I think, obviously, no idea is too small or too silly. In fact, those are often the best ideas. So shout out to Todd for being such an inspiration for everything you've done and for all the people who participated in Nanaimo Fusion. And shout out to you for, in all the ways you do it, find ways to be kind to the people around you and to give them that sense of community and connection. looking forward to seeing you guys again soon. And if you're on my Facebook, join me on Facebook, Benita K. Hutchison, and I will be in the next little bit doing my free mini reading. So I pull a card for you, and we have a lot of fun with that. So watch for that. That'll probably be, if not today, in the next few days. It might even be from the boat because we are going out on the water this weekend. All right, I love you guys. And for those, by the way, who've written me such beautiful messages asking me about my health, I am feeling so much better. I have Sparky right here, my little pacemaker, and I don't know why, but medications I've been taking for years, I don't need anymore. It seems like everything was my heart and it was affecting my lungs and everything else. I haven't felt this good in a long time. It's amazing. So for those of you who are asking, yeah, I'm super happy. I'm feeling super healthy, got all my energy back, and just loving life. So if there's anything that I can do for you, you can book me on my website. You can meet me in person at my lovely office in the Old City Quarter. I'm there by appointment only. You can work with me by phone. You can work with me by video call, and I will send you a recording. If you meet me in my office, you're absolutely welcome to record me on your phone. All right, folks, lovely to have you here, and I'll look forward to seeing you all again soon. Bye for now.